Yep, of course it's pretty loud. Listeners are not confused about video. Listeners are not confused about video. You're listening to Listeners Are Not Confused About Video, presented by Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander on Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., and Spreaker, Social Podcasting, presented for World Reading Club in association with ExercisingYourMind.com and Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus comes to us from SoundsProfitable.com. That's right, Sounds Profitable, SoundsProfitable.com. SoundsProfitable.com, and the article is actually called Confused About Video? The Listeners Aren't. And I think it was published today. It's by Tom Webster. You can on October 17th, 2023, so that's 2 days ago. And this is also sponsored by blogdealer.com. That's blogdealer.com, blogdealer.com, where you'll find health, fitness, and fat reduction products on there, of course, because I'm one of those health nuts. And so I've looked at some of those things that might be helpful to people in those categories. This popped out to me, this article on SoundsProfitable.com. They come into my email. Anyway, there's a lot of motivation for why I'm reading this, but, one of them is, again, I did, if you can believe it, a 10-hour podcast in 2 5-hour parts with William Bonatati, who's been through a hell of a lot of stuff. And I did it on Spreaker, of course, because I have 5 hours of live on-air broadcasting time through a phone call. And it was called something like Disturbing Conspiracy Theories. And all of those now you'll find through the Spreaker podcast. But let's just get into the Sounds Profitable. Oh, yeah, and when I did that, of course, because he talks about a lot of COVID-19 stuff that would be considered conspiracy theories. And, of course, I got another strike on YouTube, and it got taken down. I didn't even realize it. I usually, when I talk to him or anybody like that, I unclick the share to YouTube button so that doesn't happen. Fortunately, I haven't gotten a strike from them, so it's been at least 90 days, at least 3 months, so it was only one, it doesn't matter. But you should check that one out with William Bonatati. He has a lot to say about a lot of things, and it's not that I agree with everything he says. He's just an interesting guy to talk to. But that's what part of this is about. YouTube, I don't know, this censorship thing that they do, it doesn't even seem reasonable, logical, or rational in any way, that the things that they censor from there. But again, if I probably keep on talking about that, I wonder if that'll get a strike on the video for talking about YouTube's censorship. But this Sounds Profitable article, again, is called Confused About Video, The Listeners Aren't. Let's get into that. It's by Tom Webster. If you go to SoundsProfitable.com, you can also listen to it as a podcast version as well, instead of me reading it here and talking on my shit. So, alright, so this is Tom Webster's article on SoundsProfitable.com, Confused About Video, The Listeners Aren't. So, let's start. Video continues to throw a spanner into the podcast works. On the one hand, we know that YouTube specifically ranks very highly anytime you ask podcast listeners what platforms they ever use to consume podcasts. On the other, dumping your podcast on YouTube without a visual component doesn't really work that well. With so many of the top podcasts in America also having a video counterpart, What are we supposed to make of the definition of a podcast today? So, that's interesting too, because someone here who does podcasting, YouTubing, a YouTuber here on the Wisdom app, talked about how my podcasts, because they get posted directly from Spreaker onto YouTube, they only have a still image, and so there's just a tile and then the audio, so there's no video there. And so that's what they just addressed, right? Or this author just addressed, Tom Webster, says, on the other hand, dumping your podcast on YouTube without a visual component doesn't really work that well. I mean, if it's not working that well, and if I start putting videos on them and I start getting a super increase, because it's already at 250,000 downloads, and that's downloads, not even the streaming component, that's ridiculous. Because the streaming is at 1.25 million streams of it, interestingly enough, because they're done like this, with me sitting in a bookstore eating muffins and drinking tea with all this noise around me most of the time, and some of them sound like shit because I just start recording whenever and wherever I am. But so that's kind of insane, right? So I wonder what happens if I the other day I started capturing some videos of me driving for hours from like North Carolina and other places in Richmond, and I was going to just put those as the background for video, but let me get through this. This seems like it might be kind of long, so if I talk too much about my own stuff, we'll never get through it. Alright, so continuing. The one thing I have consistently said from the first time I talked about YouTube on stage at Podcast Movement 5 years ago was that YouTube was the best content search engine in the world. We have all spent loads of unplanned time clicking over to the recommended videos on the right side of the screen after watching the thing we came there for in the first place. Whenever podcasters talk about the discovery problems in the medium, I think about this. The result of YouTube's increasing importance to the podcast space has been a fair amount of agita about whether or not... What the hell is that word, agita? Did he mean to put agitation? Or is there a word agita? Hold on, I gotta look that up. So this says the result of YouTube's increasing importance to the podcast space has been a fair amount of agita. Okay, is it a Gita? I mean, is he like an Indian word that I don't know of? Alright, oh boy. Agita, is there a word? Yes, it is. It's part of the word agitation. No, fuck Google. I put agita. Just agita by itself. Right. It is pronounced agita. Anxiety, stress, or aggravation. There will be times when he causes the leadership some agita. Alright. There it goes. So it is shares the same root of the word agitation. Alright, let's continue. So let's take a look. So the result of YouTube's increasing importance to the podcast space has been a fair amount of agita. Remember that being anxiety, stress, or aggravation. There's been a fair amount of anxiety, stress, and aggravation about whether or not we all have to become YouTubers, and this is our life now. There is a clear advantage to having a podcast on YouTube if it has a compelling visual component. See, there he goes again, talking shit about me without really knowing me. If it has a compelling visual component. That's what, I wish that would be great if Spreaker would just kind of automatically add at least some kind of, you know how some of the old screensavers used to have those things that just kind of showed like a waveform or something? That might even be more interesting than just a still screen. They used to have something before that was, I don't like the one they have now. It's white with yellow. Before it used to be a black one. At least it was easier on the eyes. Now they have the yellow one. I don't know what happened. But it's and there are free software that, I mean, of course you can upgrade to their pro accounts and stuff like that, but that actually make videos that are really cool with said waveforms and things like that I've used. I forget what some of them are called, and they're recommended actually by Spreaker that I use the podcast with. I think that's one of the reasons why over on Wisdom, why the audiograms work so well when you answer the questions. They're 1 minute long, and they post very easily to YouTube Shorts, to TikTok, to Instagram, to Facebook, and to all the places where you can put little videos like that, and they have a little waveform and they're pretty with purple and all that stuff like that, so those work pretty well. They've gotten, like, for me, 1,000 views in one day just from simply putting them on TikTok, and I very rarely use TikTok or anything like that, and even on YouTube as well, so there's something really good about those, the visual formats, so he's right about that, and I still haven't, even this one is going to go on YouTube with just a plain tile on YouTube, because that's how Spreaker publishes for now. So Spreaker, if you're listening, or your AI is, get us a waveform. And if you do that for the what is it called? Publisher plan, I'll pay you $250 a month. Right now I pay for the Anchorman plan. But if you put a waveform with the videos on Spreaker, I'll instantly upgrade to the publisher plan. I pay $250 a month just so I can get those pretty waveforms on YouTube. Anyway, but they don't have that right now, so that's why I don't do it. It's got to be simple for me. So I'm here on mobile devices, chilling at bookstores, eating muffins. What the hell? All right, somebody was just calling my phone. Hopefully that didn't. Oh no, I can't put it on airplane mode. All right, here we go. So, the result of YouTube's increasing importance to the podcast space, by the way, this is me continuing Tom Webster's article from October 17, 2023, called Confused About Video, the Listeners Aren't, from soundsprofitable.com. I think I got an important text message for whoever that was calling. Yeah, it's somebody from Uber crew team saying, making sure I'm all good to go for office hours tomorrow. I'm filling in for somebody else, another Uber crew team member who's not able to make it for office hours. So I'll text him back later. Well, maybe I should just do it now. Can I do voice to text? No, I can't. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to screw anything up over here. All right. Here we go. Let's focus, Hakeem. This is your problem. All right, so continuing. The result of YouTube's increasing importance to the podcast space has been a fair amount of agita about whether or not we all have to become YouTubers, and this is our life now. There is a clear advantage to having a podcast on YouTube if it has a compelling visual component. Even watching people talk into a microphone dramatically improves focus and comprehension. People can literally follow a conversation better if they have a focal point for each voice. But if you can't manage that, you probably aren't going to get many plays, and you will likely question what you are even doing there. No, I don't question what I'm doing there. I get enough plays. What's interesting is people go straight from YouTube with those plain tile things. The one good thing that Spreaker does is that right at the beginning it shows you a source and gives you a link that goes right to Spreaker. So that's where I'm getting those 250,000 downloads from all the time. And it's, even though it's really low right now, the minimum is about 200 or 300 downloads a day, downloads a day, and anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 in a week, 1,000 to 3,000 in 1 week. It just depends on what I'm putting there. And now I think there should be an increase in that too, because now on exercisingyourmind.com, on hypnoathletics.com, on one of my news sites, and I forget where else, I pinned my YouTube player to the top of each one of those pages for World Reading Club, so we'll see how that goes. Alright, so continuing. What I hear even more from podcasters, though, is concern about what even is a podcast anymore. If podcasting and online videos are all just the same thing, have we lost the special sauce of podcasting? Are we doomed to transition from good at audio to mediocre video producers? Well, I have some good news for you. While industry insiders might be confused about the shifting definition of what a podcast is, the listeners actually aren't. In fact, in our most recent study, the podcast landscape, they made that quite clear in the answers to just 2 questions. First, when it comes to discovering new podcasts, recommendations are still the top channel. So you can increase your friends and family promotional budget without fear. When you set recommendations aside, however, there is a clear number 1 source for podcast discovery. So he's got a nice visual chart here, and it reads, aside from personal recommendations, which of the following are ways you find a podcast? And YouTube is at the top, 48%. And this is the question that he asked in that survey on the podcast landscape. It's, aside from personal recommendations, which of the following are ways you find podcasts? Let me read that again so I don't trip over my face. All right, so aside from personal recommendations, which of the following are ways you find your podcast? And number 1 is YouTube at 48%. Number 2 is searching on the internet, 30%. Facebook, 28%. Recommendation from another podcast host, 25%. On Spotify, 24%. Instagram, 23%. Browsing my podcast app, 22%. TikTok, 21%. A mention on a website, 20%. A mention on radio or television, 19%. A trailer or ad on a podcast, 14%. Twitter, 13%. A radio commercial, 11%. And other, 5%. So remember, this is from soundsprofitable.com. You can find this article. It's called Confused About Video, the Listeners Aren't. So if you audio folks out there want to see those statistics, you can see that. And wow, they've got some cool sponsors, like Sounds Profitable sponsors by, they have what, I don't even know what all those things are. Brewmeter, PRX, co-host, BetterHelp, wow, ESPN podcast, man, they got XS, Sirius, XM Media, wow. Well, I've got Uniquilibrium and Blog Dealer. Blog Dealer is my sponsor right now. Go to blogdealer.com, blogdealer, and look up some health, fitness, and fat reduction products. All right, so continuing with Mr. Webster's article here on soundsprofitable.com, it says, in technical terms, we call that a big number. YouTube isn't just number 1. It's 60% larger than number 2. Let me look at that again. So YouTube at 48%, and searching on the internet is 30%. And that means that it's more than 60% larger than Facebook, recommendations from another podcast host, and Spotify, which all are at 25, 24% respectively there. That's crazy. Searching on the internet is at 30%. That's nuts. But YouTube, okay. So in technical terms, we call that a big number. YouTube isn't just number 1, it's 60% larger than number 2. It's also nearly 4 times larger than Twitter/X, the easy button for podcast promoters. Seems to me we want to be there. Here's an even more interesting data point, however. When we asked people what they expected a podcast to be, the answer was pretty clear. So here's their question again. Remember, this was what they did on the podcast landscape, their survey. And the question again is, when you think of a podcast, do you expect it to be audio or video? And we got a color-coded little chart here. And 30% said they expected to be audio only. 37% say usually audio only, but maybe video. 20% says maybe audio only or video. 9% says usually video, but maybe audio only. And 36% said video only, and only a very small percent, I don't know what number that is, looks like 1% says don't know. But let me add up these numbers. 30 plus 37 is 67, plus 20 is 87, plus 9 is 96, plus 3 is 99. Yeah, so that black is 1%. All right. Continuing. 13% of respondents leaned towards video, with another 20% ambivalent about the whole affair. Fully 2/3 of Americans, 18 plus, however, expected a podcast to always or usually be an audio medium. Not much confusion there. So while people who eat, sleep, and breathe podcasts every day worry about the changing definition of a podcast, and I count myself in this number, the listeners are still pretty clear. Yeah, so am I, buddy. I'm pretty clear. Podcasts are freaking audio. I mean, that's why it's so simple for me. That's why I do them from mobile devices and not noisy-ass environments like this, or in my car, or wherever I'm traveling to, because it's easy just to speak into a microphone and not have to worry about video setups and even all those roadcasters that people are using. Although I'm probably going to get a roadcaster soon. I heard that some of them are, I think you can get them, I haven't even looked it up, but that they're wireless, and then also they have some pretty cool features built into them. So I'm going to have to start looking that up, and then I can beam it to my phone and get a pretty crazy sound. We'll see what happens. All right, so the listeners are still pretty clear. So how do we square the fact that most people think podcasts are primarily an audio medium? What the fuck with all that noise? People drag chairs like that. Insane. All right, so how do we square the fact that most people think podcasts are primarily an audio medium with the fact that YouTube is by far the top platform for podcast discovery? Some of this is down to the disproportionately large impact of a few podcasts. The fat head of an otherwise long-tail medium is really only a few hundred podcasts deep. And if you added up the non-duplicated reach of even the top 25 multi-channel podcasts available both as an audio file through RSS and on YouTube, they would reach a sizable double-digit percentage of podcast listeners. That could certainly explain why nearly half of podcast listeners say they have ever discovered a podcast on YouTube, but also think of podcasting as an audio medium. Yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan, right? One of the biggest podcasters ever, was primarily podcasting while he was doing his podcast, was making a video as well, and now they moved him over to Spotify because of that whole ridiculous controversy he had when they were trying to throw him under the bus because he had people talking about you-know-what, which I'm not going to talk about now because YouTube will strike me off, and I don't feel like going through another one of those right now. All right. So how do we square the fact that most people think podcasts are primarily an audio medium with the fact that YouTube is by far the top platform for podcast discovery? Some of this is down to the disproportionately large impact of a few podcasts. The fat head of an otherwise long-tail medium is really only a few hundred podcasts deep, and if you added up the non-duplicated reach of even the top 25 multi-channel podcasts available both as an audio file through RSS and on YouTube, they would reach a sizable double-digit percentage of podcast listeners. That could certainly explain why nearly half of the podcast listeners say they have ever discovered a podcast on YouTube, but also think of podcasting as an audio medium. Yeah, and why mine is still just basically audio with one picture on YouTube, for the most part. Alright, maybe I should change that then. There is another way, but not anytime soon. Continuing. There is another way to think about this, however, and this is what I would suggest for the rest of us. A mindset shift. Instead of thinking about YouTube as a place to promote a podcast, imagine instead that it is a place to promote a podcaster. So much of the YouTube economy revolves around individual creators, from Mr. Beast to that kid who opens up presents who is probably in jail or something by now. What the hell? The kid who opens up presents and is probably in jail or something by now. Yeah, interesting. I don't know who that is. Somebody help me. All right, podcasting's number one show, you know who he is, might be exclusive to Spotify. Hey, I was just talking about him. But the person sure isn't. There are multiple clips from his show uploaded to YouTube every day. You may not be producing as much video as Rogan, but you could produce something, even a short, that promotes who you are and why people should care about a show you make. Okay, there we go. So I mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to give y'all this tip again, because it doesn't seem like many people are actually using it this way, but those audiograms, the questions that we can answer through audio on Wisdom, when people can ask us a question, that right there, I'm going to start using those to promote my podcast on YouTube. So thank you, Wisdom. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to hijack the audiograms and give like short 30 to 60 minute blurbs about my podcast on Spreaker through Wisdom. And there, because you can ask yourself a question, right, folks? On Wisdom, you can ask yourself a question and then answer it however you want, and it comes up with this beautiful little video. So I'm going to start doing that, and I guess I'll go back to putting them on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and all those other places. So we'll see what happens. All right. Good. Continuing. So you may not be producing as much video as Rogan. Gosh, I keep getting these text messages. They're distracting. But you could produce something, even a short, that... Oh, wait, but could you? Oh, he's asking me a question. But could you produce something, even a short, that promotes who you are and why people should care about a show you make? Not a trailer. I don't think people actively look for trailers, but a short. But a short, interesting, and entirely self-contained bit of video that shows off why you and or your co-hosts are smart, capable, funny, and worthy of attention. Through that, they can discover you, and in discovering you, could be led to your podcast. I think the fact that a clear majority of Americans still see podcasting as an audio-centric medium should be reassuring to you. It is to me. I got into this business because I love audio and I hate doing video, and I was not relishing the thought of having to wheel a bunch of ring lights into my living room. But I think we could all do something that demonstrates whether or not we are worthy of attention. If you'll excuse me, I'm heading off to film a bunch of reaction videos of me listening to podcasts for the first time while eating street food with a mouth mic to catch that ASMR goodness. Is he kidding me? He better be. Hello, welcome Chocolate Yoda to the room. Martin John Garcia, Wandering Fool. Hey, I like that picture. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. Nice. Nice profile pic. What's up, Mary Kay, Daily Shift, Daryl with the Dashes, Soldier of God, and Marcian. Whether you've stopped to sit a spell or passing through, what's up? I haven't been here for a while, and probably not going to be, except for hacking those audiograms. I'm going to hack the audiograms. So that was a good article by Mr. Tom Webster. So let's see, what does it say about Tom Webster here? It says, Tom Webster is a partner at Sounds Profitable, dedicated to setting the course for the future of the audio business. He's a 25-year veteran audio researcher and trusted advisor to the biggest companies in podcasting, and has dedicated his career to the advancement of podcasting for networks and individuals alike. He has been the co-author and driver behind some of audio's most influential studies, from the Infinite Dial series to Share of Ear and the podcast Consumer Tracker. Webster has led hundreds of audience research projects on 6 continents for some of the most listened to podcasts and syndicated radio shows in the world. He's done a card trick for Paula Abdul. Hey, I met her. Shared a martini with Tom Jones, and sold vinyl to Christopher Walken. All right, so that's that in a nutshell there. So basically, to wrap this up, basically what he's saying is that people still view podcasts as an audio-only medium, and they know that that's what it is. It's basically, internet radio, so to speak, in some ways, right? They want to hear the audio. We don't have to become YouTubers and drag ring lights into our rooms to start put in video as well, but we can use YouTube to promote you, the person, your personality, with short videos that show off who you are and why people should care about your podcast. and put those up on YouTube instead of putting whole podcasts, but making short, self-contained videos that say, hey, I'm here, what's up, and I'm totally cool, you should come check me out somehow. But that's cool, short, self-contained. That's why I think that those audiograms from Wisdom are great, because they actually can be short and self-contained, because if you ask yourself and answer a question in those 60 seconds, it'll work out pretty well. So although I cannot put links externally to things here on Wisdom, it will be in the podcast under this same name on Spreaker, and this is under the World Reading Club podcast on Spreaker, which you can also find pinned now to the top of my blog on exercisingyourmind.com, as well as hakeemalexander.com and hypnoathletics.com, because I'm really pushing my podcast listens there now. And you'll be able to see the links to this Sounds Profitable article. Listen to it there if you like, instead of hearing my shenanigans and the noise here at the Barnes & Noble in Town Center in Virginia Beach, and get some more info there. So I see that a couple more people have joined the room, but I'm about to get out of here. Hello, Terry and Lois Hampson. Good to see y'all. And I'm bouncing out of here now. So you've been listening to Listeners Are Not Confused About Video, presented by Hakeem Alibokas Alexander on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, and Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with exercisingyourmind.com and Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus came to us from soundsprofitable.com, an article by Tom Webster titled Confused About Video? The Listeners Aren't. And it's sponsored by blogdealer.com. That's me, blogdealer.com, blogdealer.com. Go check it out for health, fitness, and fat reduction products to support this and other audio. I'm opening up another store too soon, guys. Get ready for all that Black Friday and cyber nonsense that you guys do. We'll see you later.